Creates. Well, who wouldn't? On the other side of the break, Judge, I want to ask you, well, I don't want to give it away. We're going to have some fun on the other side of the break, but the book is It is Dangerous to Be Right When the Government is Wrong. My guest, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Make sure...
Source of sanity in an insane world. It's the Peter Schiff Show.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Peter Schiff Show. I'm Tom Woods, in for Peter. Joined for one more segment by Judge Andrew Napolitano, great hero to us all. Judge, before I get back to your book, which, again, I love this book. It's a great primer on liberty and all its ramifications. It's amazing to me that in the midst of 14-hour days at Fox, you have time to be basically writing a book a year. I don't see how you do it, but that's your own secret. We have a seminar on that. But I want to ask you something that basically people have been pleading with me to ask. I think you know what it is, but there's been a lot of talk about Judge Andrew Napolitano running for some kind of political office just because you are a take-no-prisoners, tough as nails, super smart guy. You'd have tremendous support. You're, I would say, almost the only person outside of Ron Paul that the whole Ron Paul community unanimously trusts. Like, there are people in the Ron Paul orbit, 80% of us like, or 70%, 100% like Judge Napolitano. Is there any chance you would even consider that, or is it definitively ruled out now and forever?
Oh, you're so kind. I'm not even sure you're talking about me, but I'll take all the flattery and praise that I can get. Look, I believe in the liberty movement, and I see the need for a night watchman, and the megaphone and the audience that I have now as the night watchman for the liberty movement is extraordinary, and it's a gift to me. You know, I don't own Fox. I'm just employed here, and as long as they want to give me this platform, I think I'm going to stay here because my opportunity is really to educate people about the subtle and insidious ways in which liberty can be lost, and I think I can do far more good in that process of education with the platform that I have now than with any other platform. On the other hand, were Congressman Paul to be elected President of the United States, and if there is a vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States during his term, I'd be all ears.
Well, that is very good to know.
I'm even qualified for that, but that's something you can't turn down.
No. You would have to have your head examined. Well, I mean, people talk about you. I just had a call before you came on. Somebody saying, "Look, the judge would be a great VP." And
well,
I mean,
I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
I'm aware of those very flattering websites out there, and I'm aware of the polls that they have taken. That's good for the ego. It's also good for spreading our message. I know that sometimes my voice and my unique style can be the messenger, not the message. So to that extent, it's helpful, but it's probably unrealistic.
Now, it's only fair you have an author on. You got to talk about his book. So getting back to the book, everybody, once again, is It is Dangerous to Be Right When the Government is Wrong, The Case for Personal Freedom. Before you came on, I was just going through some of the chapter titles, all the different areas that you cover here. What do you find is the toughest sell that people are most skeptical when you try to make the case for freedom? What's the hardest one?
That the government can't take freedom away from us. Only the staunch libertarians recognize natural rights, that is, rights that are integral to our humanity. Even well-educated people, some of them are running for president, not Ron Paul, slip into the idea that freedom of speech comes from the government. It doesn't come from the government. The government has an affirmative obligation to protect it. But probably the right that people are most willing to give up, and this is very unsettling, is the right to be left alone, the right to privacy. And when I argue things like, well, the government can't track your cell phone and track you without a search warrant, they basically say to me, as you did earlier when you were playing devil's advocate, well, what's the harm? If you didn't do anything wrong, you have nothing to hide. That is probably the most difficult argument to make, because most of us have been educated in schools owned by the government. Most of us have been taught from day one to show unique, unusual, and in my view, perverse subservience to the government. Most of us believe that the government is usually right. Now, I take the opposite view on all of those. The government is almost always wrong in almost everything that it does. The government does not create our rights. Only God has created our rights. The government cannot take those rights away from us. We can only surrender those rights by our own behavior when we violate the natural rights of others. That's the message of the book, what I just said in that past soliloquy. It's a tough sell with respect to privacy, and it's a tough sell with those who think that the government, that the state, is greater than individuals. But for people who understand the natural law, who believe that human beings are created in the image and likeness of God and have an immortal soul, and the government is just a temporary human organization based on force, this book is red meat, and they love it.
Judge, we've got just about 2 minutes, if that. But so it's totally unfair of me to ask you this question. But toward the end, when you're talking about taxation, you take a very radical position here that is that you can find in this book. That's basically arguing that taxation, because it involves coercion, it's an expropriation of peaceful people, is illegitimate. Is that? Are you willing to take that position? Is that? And I'm understanding you correctly?
I do take that position in the book. Now, of course, I'm not running for public office. I'm not running as somebody who wants to fund the government, but a government that I would fund would do far, far fewer things than what the present government does. It would resemble the federal government, absent things like slavery and suppression of women's rights that the founders gave us. There wouldn't be that we wouldn't need money for the Department of Education or the Department of Commerce or the Department of Agriculture or the Department of Health and Human Services or Housing and Urban Development. The government would stay within the confines of the Constitution. And it would be financed by user fees. Some of those fees would come from the states when the federal government provided service to the states. Some would come from people using the government's ports and transporting goods through them. But look, you wouldn't let a crook steal money from you if he promised to give it away in your name. You wouldn't let your neighbors take money against your will if they promised to give it away in your name. Why would you let the government take your money against your will if they promise to give it away in your name? I don't see any difference.
No, it's nuggets like this that make this book so enjoyable. The book is It Is Dangerous to Be Right When the Government is Wrong. My guest has been Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, what a pleasure to have you on. Thanks so much for taking some time today.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, everybody, stick around for another hour.